Okay, out of the reference guide to regulatory compliance, I'm actually going to read out of the newer version because there's been some changes to Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board section. And in the new version, this starts on PDF page 1094 and 1075 in the text. The Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, MSRB, was created by Congress as a self-regulatory organization in 1975 in the Securities Act's amendments of 1975 for the purpose of providing regulatory oversight to the municipal securities industry and to protect investors, state and local governments, and other municipal entities and the public interest by promoting a fair and efficient municipal securities market. During the early 1970s, several instances of fraud among municipal securities dealers occurred, prompting Congress to establish a regulatory framework for these transactions. As the principal regulator in the municipal securities market, the MSRB develops rules for financial professionals designed to ensure a fair and efficient market by preventing fraud and other unfair practices, establishing professional qualifications, supporting market transparency, and applying uniform practices to the industry. The MSRB is governed by a board of directors knowledgeable in municipal securities related matters. The board members include representatives from public and private regulated entities of the municipal market. The MSRB is a self-regulatory organization that is subject to oversight by the SEC, and its rules are approved and enforced by the SEC and by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, for securities firms, and the OCC, FDIC, and the Federal Reserve Board for banks. A bank is a municipal securities dealer governed by MSRB rules when it acts as an underwriter of municipal securities, maintains a trading account, or carries a dealer inventory, or advertises as a dealer in trade publications. A bank that buys or sells municipal securities only for fiduciary capacity or for its own account is not a municipal securities dealer for purposes of the MSRB rules. There are three categories of MSRB rules. That's administrative rules, which govern the structure, powers, and membership of the MSRB, and dealer assessment and fees. 2, the definitional rules, which define the various terms used by the MSRB, and 3, general rules, which describe the regulatory requirements for municipal securities dealers. There are 39 general rules that govern bank activities as a municipal securities dealer. The substantive ones are addressed here. 1. Coverage. Separately identifiable department or division of a bank, Rule G1. A bank is considered to be a municipal securities dealer if it A. underwrites, trades, or sells municipal securities. B. provides financial advisory and consultant services for municipal securities issuers. C. processes and clears municipal securities. D. performs research and gives investment advice with respect to municipal securities. E. performs any other activity not specifically mentioned above that involves communications with public investors in municipal securities. And F. maintains records pertaining to any of the activities described above. A bank is not considered a municipal securities dealer if it is involved solely in A and B, which A is buying and selling municipal securities for its own account, and B is buying and selling municipal securities in a capacity as a fiduciary. And third, banks that are municipal securities dealers may register the bank or may register a separately identifiable department or division as a municipal securities dealer. To qualify, a SID, a separately identifiable department or division, and its employees must be under the direct supervision and control of an officer or officers designated by the board of directors of the bank as responsible for all municipal security dealers' activities, and the records of the SID must be maintained separately from the bank, so they are separately extractable to permit independent examination. MSRB rules. A. Professional qualifications. Rule G-2 and Rule G-3. Each municipal securities dealer must have at least 2 municipal securities principles who A. must complete and pass the National Municipal Securities Principal Qualification Examination, and B. provide management direction or supervision of one or more of the following, which includes 1 through 7. 1. Underwriting, trading, selling of municipal securities. 2. Financial advisory or consulting services. For issuers of municipal securities, 3. Processing and clearance. 4. Research or investment advice with respect to municipal securities. 5. Any other activity involving communication with public investors regarding municipal securities. 6. Maintenance of records with respect to municipal securities activities. And 7. Training of municipal securities principals or municipal security representatives. The professional qualifications further is a bank with 10 or fewer persons in its municipal securities operations must have at least one municipal securities principal. And 3, 4, 5. 3, a bank with more than 10 persons in its municipal securities operations must have at least 2 municipal securities principals. 4, no broker-dealer or municipal securities dealer may engage in any transaction involving municipal securities unless the broker-dealer or municipal securities dealer and every natural person associated with such is qualified according to the rules of the board. And 5, all registered persons must complete continuing education requirements within 2 years following the anniversary of their registration and every 3 years thereafter. Associated persons, Rule G7. Banks must obtain certain information from employees who are associated persons, that is, municipal securities principals and municipal securities representatives. Forms MSD4 and MSD5. Associated persons must complete an MSD4 form and update them as information becomes accurate. MSD4 forms must be kept for 3 years following termination of employment. 3. The banks must verify accuracy of information on MSD4 by acquiring of all previous employers for the past 3 years. 4. Banks must submit Form MSD4 to the appropriate regulatory agency within 10 days of receipt. 5. Within 30 days of termination of employment of an associated person, the bank must complete and submit Form MSD-5 stating the reason for the termination. And 6. The bank must maintain a record of the name and address of each associated person by category or function, if for example, municipal securities principal and so forth, and showing whether the person has taken and passed the examination or was exempt from the examination and the basis for exemption. Record keeping, Rule G8 and G9. 1. Records must be easily accessible and readily available for regulatory inspection for at least 2 years and thereafter accessible within a reasonable period of time for the duration of the retention period. And 2. Records to be kept for 6 years include records of original entry of all purchases, sales, receipts, and deliveries of municipal securities, receipts and disbursements of cash and all debits and credits pertaining to municipal securities transactions along with all periodic statements delivered in lieu of individual confirmations. And B. Customer account records. Record keeping further under G8 and G9. The records being kept for 6 years include C, D, E, F, and G, H, I, J, and K, and that'll be it. So keep these records for 6 years. Records of each syndicate or similar account formed for the purchase of municipal securities to be maintained by the managing underwriter designed by each account. Records of all customer complaints in the response of the bank. F. Records of persons responsible for maintaining and preserving the records. G. Records of all political contributions made by any associated person and any political action committee controlled by an associated person. H. Records of all gifts, gratuities, compensation agreements, and payments, including non-cash compensation made thereunder. I. Records on consultant arrangements, including copies of agreements and date of termination of consultant arrangements. And J. Records of retail orders and disclosures made in connection with them submitting during a retail order period as defined in Rule G11. K. Records of all information on primary offerings of municipal fund securities. And 3. Records to be kept for 3 years include A through I. A. Subsidiary records consisting of ledgers or other records that reflect securities and transfer, those sent to be validated, borrowed, or loaned in failed transactions. B. Records of all options, written or oral, to sell or repurchase municipal securities in which the bank has a direct or indirect interest. C. Records of agency transactions. D. Records of transactions for the bank's own account. E. Copies of confirmations of purchases and sales and customer notices. F. Financial records. G. Personnel records, including fingerprinting. H. Customer account information with a record signed by the municipal securities representative who introduced the account and the municipal securities principal who authorized the acceptance of the account. And I. Records of deliveries of official statements. Rule G10, the delivery of investor brochure. Each bank dealer must deliver a copy of the investor brochure as designed as designated by the MSRB to a customer promptly after receiving a complaint by such customer. E. Rule G12, I should say, uniform industry practices. 1. This rule sets forth uniform industry practices for processing, clearing, and settling transactions in municipal securities between brokers and dealers. Settlement dates A through D for settlement for cash transaction trade dates, or B for regular way transactions, third business day following the trade date. C for when, as, and if issued transactions eligible for automated comparison no earlier than 2 business days after notification of the initial settlement date by the managing underwriter. 3. Each party must send a confirmation of the transaction to the other party. 4. On receipt, each party must compare and verify the confirmation to the transaction. And report discrepancies to the other party. And within 1 business day following resolution, the party in error must send a corrected confirmation to the other party. And if the dispute cannot be resolved, each party to the transaction must promptly send to the other party a written notice, return receipt requested, of non-recognition of the transaction. A delivery ticket, 5, must accompany the delivery of securities. That includes A and B. The purchaser must not be required to accept a partial delivery with respect to a single trade and a single security, a security of the same issuer having the same maturity date, coupon rate, and price. And B, delivery of damaged certificates does not constitute good delivery. 6. Securities previously accepted for delivery may be reclaimed if subsequent to delivery information is discovered that, if known, would have caused the delivery to be refused. And 7. Procedures for closeout of an incomplete transaction. A. The purchaser may notify the seller by telephone of intent to close out. 1. Notice must be at least 5 business days following the settlement date. And 2. Notice must be given date and time deadline for completion no earlier than the 10th business day following telephone notice. 3rd, the written notice of closeout must follow. And 4th, if seller does not complete the transaction, the purchaser may A, B, or C. A. Purchase at current market rate all required securities at seller's liability. B. Accept comparable securities. Or C. Require seller to repurchase the securities with the seller paying accrued interest. B is under... Where is B coming from? Oh, my goodness. Okay, procedures for closeout of an incomplete transaction. B. The seller may notify the purchaser by telephone of intent or closeout. 1, 2, and 3. 1. The notice must not be sent later than the 5th business day following the receipt of rejection notice. 2. Notice must give date and time deadline for completion, not earlier than the close of the next business day. And 3. Written notice must follow. Quotations. Rule G13. A bank may not disseminate quotes relating to municipal securities unless the bank is prepared to purchase or sell the municipal securities at the quoted price. Rule G14. Reports of sales or purchases. 1 and 2. 1. No broker-dealer or municipal securities dealer may distribute or publish the report of a sale unless the following 2 criteria are met. That's A. The broker-dealer or municipal securities dealer must have reason to believe the sale has actually been effected, and B. The broker-dealer or municipal securities dealer must have no reason to believe the report of the sale is fictitious. 2. Reports of sales or purchases, with the exception of new issue trades conducted at the list offering price and trades by dealers who are not syndicate managers or members and have not traded an issue within the preceding year. Trades are subject to a 15-minute reporting requirement under real-time processing. The exceptions extend the required reporting as follows. A and B. A. For new issue trades conducted at the list offering price, the reporting period is extended to the end of the first day of trading. And B. For trades by dealers who are not syndicate managers or members and have not traded within the preceding year, the reporting period is extended to any time within 3 hours of the trade. Rule G15. Customer confirmations, clearance, and settlement. Banks must send or give customers a written confirmation at or before the completion of a transaction. 2. Confirmation must contain quite a bit of information. You see the name, address, and telephone number of the bank unless via automated confirmation process by A registered clearing agency. B, designation of whether the transaction is a purchase or sale. C, name of customer. D, par value. E, settlement date. F, yield and dollar price. G, final monies including but not limited to the total dollar amount of the transaction, amount of accrued interest and nature, and amount of any associated fees. H, information applicable to the delivery of the securities. I, description of the securities including the name of the issuer, the Committee of Uniform Securities Identification Procedures, QSIP number, the maturity date, the interest rate, any dated date, any dated date, descriptive information such as credit backing, call put, coupon, book entry, or other features, status of the securities, and tax information. J, any security-specific required disclosure statements. K, capacity of bank, agent, principal, and so forth, including the name of the person from whom the securities were purchased or to whom they are being sold. L, the fact that a security has not been rated by a nationally recognized statistical rating organization, if applicable. M, first interest payment date, if necessary to calculate the final money. N, identity of the additional obligor if there is one additional obligor, or a notation of multiple obligors if there is more than one additional obligor. O, date and price for the next pricing call. P, primary revenue source for revenue bonds. Q, amount of dealer's discount or concession in an agency transaction. R, initial public offering price for an original issue discount security. 3, a separate confirmation must be provided for each municipal securities transaction whenever more than one transaction is done at one time. 4, redemptions of municipal fund securities must be confirmed. 5, periodic statements may be used in lieu of confirmation. 6, dealers that act as safekeeping agents must make reasonable efforts to retransmit official communications to their safekeeping clients. I, J, and K representing Rule G16, G17, and G19. G16, which is periodic compliance examinations. This rule requires each broker-dealer, municipal securities dealer to be examined at least every 2 years to determine compliance with all applicable board rulings and provisions of the Act. J, standards of fair practice under Rule G17. Bank dealers must deal honestly and fairly and not engage in deception or unfair practices. This standard of fair practice includes a duty to disclose to the consumer all material facts concerning a transaction before the sale of securities, and including a complete description of securities. Rule G19, suitability of recommendations and transactions. A bank must have a reasonable basis to believe that a recommended transaction or investment strategy involving municipal securities is suitable for the customer based on the information obtained through reasonable diligence of the bank to ascertain the customer's investment profile. 2, a customer's investment profile includes at least the following. That's the customer's age, other investments, financial situations and needs, tax status, investment objectives, investment experience, investment time horizon, liquidity needs, risk tolerance, and any other information disclosed by the customer relating to such recommendation. Rule G20 about gifts and gratuities. No broker-dealer may give anything of value in excess of $100 per year to a person if such gifts are in relation to the municipal securities activities of the employer of the person. Occasional gifts of meals, tickets, and so forth that are recognized by the IRS as deductible business expenses are permitted. Occasional gifts must not be so frequent or so extensive as to raise any question of propriety. In connection with primary offering, non-cash compensation of $100 or less on occasional gifts are allowed as long as compensation and gifts are not preconditioned on the achievement of a sales target. Advertising. Rule G21. Banks must not engage in false or misleading advertising. Advertising is defined as material published or designed for use in the public media or any promotional literature designed for dissemination to the public. Advertisements for municipal fund securities must include disclosures that advise investors to consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, actually have to turn the page. Risks, charges, and expenses associated with municipal fund securities before investing. Explain that more information about municipal fund securities is available in the issuer's official statement. C. State that the official statement should be read carefully before investing. D. Include certain required legends if the advertisement includes historic performance data. 4. If an advertisement identifies a source from which an investor may obtain an official statement and the dealer that publishes the advertisement is the underwriter for the municipal fund securities for which such official statement may be supplied, the advertisement must state that the dealer is the underwriter for such municipal fund securities. And lastly, 5. Each advertisement must be approved in writing by the principal with such approval evidence and retained in a segregated file containing all advertisements. Rule G23. Banks that have as financial advisors to municipal securities issuers must uphold an ethical standard whereby the bank avoids any conflict of interest in the transaction. Banks acting as financial advisors must meet specified disclosure requirements. Customer account transfers. Rule G26. If a customer wishes to transfer his or her municipal securities account from one dealer to another, the dealers must coordinate their activities to expedite the transfer. Supervision. Rule G27. A bank must adequately supervise its employees in municipal securities transactions. Banks must establish written supervisory procedures for compliance with MSRB rules, and the advisory procedures must include the process by which the municipal securities principal will monitor for compliance and supervise the activities of associated persons. B. Review and document approval of the opening of each customer account. C. On a daily basis, review and document approval of each transaction within a discretionary account. D. Respond to customer complaints relating to the dealer's municipal securities activities. And E. Correspondence relating to the solicitation or execution of transactions. Each dealer must establish procedures for a designated principal to review all written and electronic correspondence of its municipal securities representatives and members of the public related to the municipal securities activities of such dealer. Procedures must include review of incoming correspondence to identify and handle customer complaints. If procedures do not call for a review of all correspondence before use, then they must require training and education of personnel as to the dealer's procedures for handling customer complaints. Policy must require surveillance and follow-up to ensure the procedures are followed. And 4th, for supervision, procedures must be reviewed at least once a year and updated if necessary. Rule G28, 29, 30, and 32. Rule G28, transactions with employers and other broker-dealers. If a bank opens an account for a person who is employed by another municipal securities broker-dealer, the bank must notify the broker-dealer's employer. And 2, the bank must send duplicate confirmations of transactions to the employer. Availability of board rules. Rule G29. Copy of all MSRB rules must be kept at each location and must be available for inspection by customers on request and does not apply to transactions involving only municipal fund securities. Prices and commissions. Rule G30. All principal and agency transactions must be effected at prices and commissions that are fair and reasonable. T. New issues disclosures. Rule G32. Bank must provide certain disclosures on new issues to the customer by the time of settlement, including copy of the final official statement or preliminary one if a final is not available. B. The underwriting spread on a negotiated sale. C. The amount for the fee that the broker receives from the issuer. D. The initial offering price in a negotiated sale. And other new issues disclosures is a bank acting as managing or sole underwriter or financial advisor for new issues of municipal services securities must provide a printable electronic version of the official statement. If an electronic version has been prepared and the issuer does not object to its distribution. To any dealer that requests an electronic version and provides an email address or other delivery instructions acceptable to the managing or sole underwriter, the principal electronic version must be provided in addition to the required paper copies unless the requesting dealer consents to receive only the electronic version. Information on the new issuance must be submitted by the underwriter to the electronic Municipal Market Access System, which makes the information available through the MSRB website. CUSIP numbers, Rule G-34. Brokers and dealers that acquire new issues of municipal securities from the issuer must obtain a CUSIP number from the MSRB or its designee before the purchase contract is executed. The rule does not apply if the issuer has obtained a CUSIP number for the issue, and the municipal fund securities are exempted from the requirements of this rule. For CUSIP numbers? Alright, arbitration. Each bank dealer, this is Rule G-35, each bank dealer is subject to arbitration for any claim, dispute, or controversy submitted for arbitration. G-36, delivery of official statements. Underwriters must send to the MSRB 2 copies of final official statements and Form G-36, in parentheses it says OS, either electronically or in paper format, no later than 10 business days after the final agreement to purchase, offer, or sell a municipal security. Rule G-37, political contributions and other prohibitions. There's 4 points here. Brokers, dealers, and municipal securities dealers may not engage in the municipal securities business with an issuer if a political contribution has been made to officials of the issuer within the previous 2 years. 2. Brokers, dealers, and municipal securities dealers must disclose political contributions to the MSRB. And 3. Brokers, dealers, and municipal securities dealers may not solicit any contributions for an issuer with which the broker or dealer is engaging or seeking to engage in the municipal securities business. And 4th, broker, dealer, and municipal securities dealers may not do indirectly anything that they are prohibited from doing directly. Solicitation of municipal securities business. This is Rule G-38. No broker, dealer, or municipal securities dealer may compensate directly or indirectly anyone other than an affiliated person for soliciting municipal securities business on its behalf. And solicitation means any direct or indirect communication by any person with an issuer for the purpose of obtaining or retaining municipal securities business. Rule G-39, telemarketing. Banks may not initiate outbound telephone calls to any person before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. unless they have an established business relationship, express prior consent, or the person called is a broker, dealer, or municipal securities dealer. 2. May not call a person on the do not call list and must maintain a specific do not call list and honor requests placed on it. And 3. Must maintain written procedures to comply with the do not call list requirements. 4. Must train and inform personnel engaged in any aspect of telemarketing in the existence of the do not call list requirements. 5. Must provide the name of the calling party, including the individual party and securities broker and dealer, and its address or telephone number. 6. Are responsible for third parties to whom they outsource telemarketing calls. 7. May not block the bank's number from caller identification transmission. 8. May not abandon outbound telephone calls. For example, calls must be connected within 2 seconds of being answered. 9. May not transmit pre-recorded calls without consent. 10. May only use credit card transactions generated by telemarketing transactions between the cardholder and the broker or dealer. Rule G-41, Anti-Money Laundering Compliance Program. Every municipal securities broker or dealer must have an anti-money laundering program in place and updated and acceptable to the NASD or its appropriate federal banking regulator. Rule G-45, effective February 15th of 2015, reporting of information on municipal fund securities. A bank that is an underwriter of a primary offering of municipal fund securities other than those that are interested in local government investment pools must report to the MSRB the information on relating to such offering on G-45 no later than 60 days following the end of each semi-annual reporting period ending on June 30th and December 31st. Rule G-47, time of trade disclosure. This was also effective in February of 2015. No broker, dealer, or municipal securities dealer may sell a municipal security to a customer or purchase a municipal security from a customer without disclosing to the customer orally or in writing at or prior to the time of the trade all material information known about the transaction and material information about the security that is reasonably accessible to the market. For instance, information that is made publicly available through established industry sources. Transactions with sophisticated municipal market professionals at SMMPs, Rule G48, which is also effective in mid-February of 2015. There is no obligation under Rule G47 to ensure the disclosure of material information that is reasonably accessible to the market. And there is no obligation under Rule G30 to take action to ensure that transactions meeting all the following conditions are effected at fair and reasonable prices. A, the transactions are non-recommended secondary market agency transactions, and B, the bank's services have been explicitly limited to providing anonymity communication, order matching, and/or clearance functions. C, the bank does not exercise discretion as to how or when the transactions are executed. 3, there is no obligation under Rule G19 to perform a customer-specific suitability analysis. And 4, the same standards regarding quotations in Rule G13 will be applied by the bank in disseminating an SMMP's quotation as if such quotations were made by another bank. Enforcement is $7,500, $37,500, and $1.425 million under FARA.